Hello and welcome to Secure the Continent and News Central Television. I am Gbenga Aborowa. This is a program where we bring you up to speed with all the security situations across the continent. But before we get into the crux of today's discussion, let's first look at the top security headlines across Africa. The African Union suspends Gabon following military coup. General Al-Burhan threatens state disintegration in Sudan war is not settled. The Niger military junta instructs police to expel French ambassador. And Johannesburg migrant building fire leaves over 70 dead. Don't go anywhere, I'll be right back. Last year, anti-MONUSCO protests left scores of people dead. A little over a year later, almost 50 people have been killed in a clampdown on anti-United Nations demonstrations in Goma by Congolese soldiers. The United Nations has called for an independent probe, demanding justice for those killed. The details for you in this package. Take a listen.
Calls for the exit of foreign forces in Africa are growing, with various African nationals across the continent expressing their discontent on a regular basis. Democratic Republic of Congo comes to light when foreign forces in Africa are mentioned, taking into account the UN peacekeeping mission in the country, which is reported to be one of the largest and costliest in the world, with an annual budget of about $1 billion. Recently, in an anti-United Nations demonstrations in Goma in the Democratic Republic of Congo, according to an assessment by the Rights Office, at least 43 people were killed, including a policeman, and 56 injured. There have been protests against the United Nations forces in Congo DR, codenamed MONUSCO, with locals citing their failure to protect them from local militia onslaughts, resulting in a call for MONUSCO's exit since 2022. The Congolese army reported that more than 150 people linked with the protest have been arrested as one of Africa's most populous countries battles a teething issue in its resource-rich region. In July 2022, protests against MONUSCO led to the death of more than 15 people, including peacekeepers in Goma and Katembo. A humanitarian crisis in the Eastern Democratic Republic of Congo has seen more than 5 million people displaced in North Kivu, one of the troubled provinces of the country. There's a growing apathy with UN forces in the region, and with the latest demonstrations, questions remain unanswered as to the place of the UN forces in the Democratic Republic of Congo and on the African continent.
Now, joining me tonight in the program is Nixon Katembo, an analyst of the Great Lakes and East Africa region, joins us live from Johannesburg. And South Africa also have Gedeon, Baleke, activist and political analyst, joining from Toronto, Canada. A warm welcome to you both, gentlemen, and thanks for joining us on today's Secure the Continent.
Thanks for having us once again.
Now, I'd like to start with Gedeon Baleke in Toronto. To start, could you provide us with a deeper understanding of what prompted the religious sect, natural, Judaic and Messianic faith towards the nation to stage an anti-United Nations protest in the eastern DR Congo in Goma? What are the underlying grievances and motivations for this protest?
Of course, there was a land of the church decided to organize a protest to demand for security. And as a matter of fact, it's widely known the MONUSCO has been in the DRC for the last 29 years to restore peace with a peacekeeping mission. But up to date, they've never achieved peace in the DRC. And people are still dying every single day. People keep on dying every single day. And there was a land of movement, just like many other social activist-led movements in the DRC. They were in the right to conduct a demonstration and to demand for security of their own people, the security of their goods, the security of the citizens. As you know, the North Kivu province has been a victim province for the last 20 years, where we've seen thousands and thousands of people being slaughtered, others being massacred and killed. So there was a Lendo movement. They decided to go in street to demonstrate peacefully to demand for justice, but unfortunately, the military forces opened fire on peaceful civilians who are demonstrating, demanding their security. So instead of having a state that is protecting the civilians here, we have now a state that is now killing as well the civilians who are peacefully demanding to be secured, because it's a human right. The security has to be guaranteed for every single Congolese. It's not just a matter of specific class of Congolese people. And people in the Eastern DRC have suffered for long, and I totally understand their grievances. I totally understand the expression of their frustrations through a peaceful demonstration. It was a peaceful demonstration until the army decided to start shooting on people with guns.
Thank you, Gedeon, for giving us that updated situational report on the violence in the Eastern DRC, where Congolese troops opened fire on innocent citizens protesting MONUSCO's continued presence in the Congo. It's been 29 years since they first arrived. Now, Nixon, Katembo, the very reports on the number of casualties in this incident raises questions about the accuracy of information. Could you shed light on the complexities of assessing casualties in such a situation, and what really led to such a high death toll? Was it a stampede? Were the protesters attacking the United Nations staff, or were they attacking the security forces? I mean, 50 plus dead is quite a huge death toll.
What I really understand is that the protesters, they organized themselves in the wee hours of the morning. They had informed the governor and the Congolese authorities in the town of Goma to say that this is our demand, we are going to protest, and that protest is going to be peaceful. However, the authority decided to go heavy-handed, resulting in those casualties. And one might understand why this happened. The current governor of North Kivu, Constant Ndima, was a part of the MLC rebellion led by the Jean-Pierre Bemba, the current vice prime minister and the defense minister of the Congolese government, the current Congolese government. And this is the very same person who led what the operation called effacer le tableau in French, meaning wipe out the blackboard, in which several civilians were killed in the Equateur province, in the current Ituri province, then known as the Haut-Zaire, and parts of Beni and Butembo, when militia factions were fighting between the RCD-KML and the MLC at the time, both of which were supported by Uganda at the time in the late 90s and the early 2000s. So that gives you, in a nutshell, context, the heavy-handedness of this approach of the military towards peaceful protesting civilian, demanding what is constitutional theirs in terms of peace and security. And in any case, the state have three major responsibilities: is to provide education, to provide security for the people and their belonging, and then to ensure that everyone is in good health. Those are key components of any state responsibility. And when a state starts killing its own civilian, then there is clearly something wrong.
Absolutely.
Whether they were agitating for government, they were not agitating for government changes and so on. These were not armed.
It wasn't a threat to the state, yes.
So that tells you how much the problem and the magnitude of the problem within the Congolese security structures. But not only that, the level of impunity that have happened in the Congo since 1996 up until today, where civilian can just die both in the hands of MONUSCO, as we've just outlined in your peace report, and in the hands of government soldiers, and there is no accountability whatsoever to ever say that, hang on, who is responsible for this? Who was the commander? And what kind of the orders did they give to even kill? It was horrifying to see bodies of poor civilians being piled up like a sack of beans in an army truck and trying to wipe out the evidence of what have transpired.
Thank you very much. Nixon, I'd like to bring back Gedeon in Toronto into the conversation. Still following on this theme of the high-handedness of Congolese security forces, there have been accusations of unlawful lethal force by security forces, and these accusations are deeply concerning. Now, Gedeon, from a legal and ethical standpoint, could you explain the responsibilities of security forces when dealing with protests, especially those involving the use of deadly force? Like you said in your opening statement, these were peaceful protests.
This is a planned massacre. You know, we've seen videos of these soldiers invading some houses. So they started attacking people before even the protests start. They started invading some people. They arrested people even who are not part of the protest, and they end up killing innocent civilians. This is a total massacre, and responsibility should definitely be drawn because the state of impunity in the DRC is reaching other levels. Remember, the army is there to secure the people, to protect the population. And the army is not there to go and brutalize people, brutalize demonstrations. We have the police forces. They have non-conventional arms that can be used whenever there is a demonstration. But they decided to use conventional guns to go and shoot on peaceful civilians who are unarmed. And they even went up to their church to arrest their leader, the leader of the Wazalendo, the Wazalendo group. They ended up going into neighborhood to neighborhood, just looking for people who are trying to go to the demonstration.
I mean,
people who are leading
just
the
listening,
demonstration.
Gedeon, listening from a layman's point of view, why is the government so opposed to this protest? Are they happy that there's a MONUSCO presence in the country, and that, I mean, for the ordinary people watching across the continent, they will be, what's in it for the Congolese government to have 29 years presence of a United Nations peacekeeping mission in their country, and why do you go ahead and kill 50 plus of your citizens because they're protesting against MONUSCO's presence? Help me make sense of this. And also, I would like to know if there's been an official response from the Congolese government, as President Felix Tshisekedi said anything about this, the death toll and this anti-MONUSCO protest.
You know, this is the reflection of the incompetence of a government and how the state of impunity has reached a cancerous level in the DRC. You know, our soldiers, most of these soldiers have been perpetuating crimes, crimes against humanity, but still, some of these criminals are still working around. As my co-debater has just said, even the current governor of Goma, he's the former rebel. He has committed crimes, but still he's the governor of that province. And under his commandment of the army of the state of siege, instead of going to the front and eradicate the M23s that are abusing with human rights, killing innocent civilians too, the army is doing the contrary. They are now attacking civilians who are demanding them to do their job, who are demanding the MONUSCO to leave the country because the MONUSCO is inefficient. You know, so the problem here is the incompetence of a government that is ineffective. The government is not effective, is not willing to secure the civilians, and yet they want to silence every single voice that is trying to stand up and advocate for the civilians' rights. This is unacceptable. This is crime against humanity, and responsibility should be drawn. The government has just released the report today, and it's an insult to see the government trying to protect its image while civilians are being killed. They should try to put themselves in the shoes of this Eastern DRC population. They've suffered for a long period. They've suffered for a long period, and they continue to suffer up to date. But still, the army that is supposed to protect them now is turning up against them and shooting people with guns. And yet the government want to cover that. Of course, they said they are going to do an investigation, but they should do more than that. They should sanction the governor of the military governor of Goma. He didn't wake up, and the soldier didn't wake up and just go to the street and start shooting people. They received order from somewhere, and those people should all be held accountable. Those people should respond for this act, and if they don't respond for this act, we will actually put the accountability on the heads of the commander-in-chief, who is Felix Tshisekedi, because he has also failed to lead the country, and his troops are now shooting on people. They are now abusing of human rights.
But before I get to, before I move on to Nixon, has he said anything on this situation? What's the official government's position? Gedeon.
The official government position. The government has just released the statement, and the statement is so useless. It reflects again the incompetency of the government. They are trying to cover their image, trying to say that the people were brutalizing the soldiers. We have the images. People were on the ground. Activists were on the ground. The demonstrations were peacefully, and they actually sent a letter to the governor. They sent a letter to the mayor saying that we are organizing a peaceful demonstration. And they actually had another demonstration last past Sunday. They had a demonstration the 30th of June during the Congolese celebration of independence. They had a peaceful demonstration. Why do they decide to go in the streets and start shooting on people? Why did the army organize itself to go and riot these peaceful civilians? Those are the questions we are asking ourselves, because this is a crime against humanity. This is the abuse of power. This is the abuse of civilians. And these people who are being killed, these are lives, other lives that are being destroyed.
Thank you, Gedeon. I'd like to bring back Nixon Katembo in Johannesburg into the conversation. Now, Nixon, the United Nations Stabilization Mission in the Congo, MONUSCO, has been on for 29 years. It's the United Nations' most expensive peacekeeping operation. Now, turning our attention to the United Nations peacekeeping mission, MONUSCO, what specific criticisms have been leveled against them, and what inherent challenges they face in fulfilling their mission effectively? Why do the Congolese people want them out? I mean, most times people welcome blue helmets, they cheer them on, and they're like, yeah, these are peacekeepers, let them come keep the peace. But in the case of the Congo is different. They want them out. Why is this so?
Well, there are three issues that I need to point out. One is the complexity around the conflict in Eastern DRC and the DRC as a whole, as a strategic country in the family of nations, the current of geo-economic interest. The second one is around the issues of vested interests within those in the United Nations Security Council, both of which have a vested interest on what is happening in the DRC. You have, for example, the 5 permanent Security Council members, namely France and the United States, as well as England, siding with the protagonist on both sides. But particularly with the case of the DRC, where, for example, the invading forces, namely Rwanda and Uganda, which have been trained by the United States, supported by the UK as well, and that's still carrying on. And you see that France coming in the latest wave of diplomatic changes and the diplomatic rapprochement between France and Kigali. Currently, the French army now having a strategic partnership with Rwanda as the Rwandan invaded the DRC through the proxies M23. So while that is happening, these are the very same UN Security Council members signing the mandate of the United Nations peacekeeping operations, but also the very same members being the contributors to the peacekeeping operation in terms of maintenance and financing. So this complicated even matters worse when the mission is on the ground, but clearly its effectiveness is glaring in the eyes of everyone. Civilians are being killed from Mahagi in Ituri province to Irum, to Beni in the North Kivu province, up until to the South Kivu. The entire region is known now for as a killing field, if you, for lack of a better word to describe that. This is in the presence of the UN. Now, the third point that I would mention is around the mission's mandate. Its mission says to secure civilian, to restore peace and security, and to guarantee the livelihood of those that are facing challenges of war, but also in assisting in the eradication of armed groups. Has MONUSCO done that? No. So this is, in my view, quote unquote peacekeeping mission, but serving other interests as well. Because you'd recall that it spent about $22 million per month. It has a budget of about $2 billion a year. One wonder why is this money going? If you make that budget available to the very same provinces that are affected by war, they would probably build some of the best hospitals in the world, some of the infrastructure road in the world for the past 20-year plus that MONUSCO
Exactly.
has been there.
Why do you spend so much and the people can't feel the impact of the spending, and there's still peace is still elusive to the people of the Eastern Democratic Republic of Congo? Thank you very much, Nixon Katembo. Now, Gedeon, President Felix Tshisekedi has called for MONUSCO to leave by December 2023, and this represents a shift in policy. I mean, if the presidents are signed off on MONUSCO leaving, why are the security forces of the same country and the same president opening fire on demonstrators that are asking MONUSCO to leave? Can you kindly outline the key consideration and complexities involved in planning the mission's exit strategy? And do you think President Tshisekedi is sincere in his declaration that, MONUSCO needs to leave before the elections?
Yes, though the Congolese crisis is complex and has a huge complexity, we should know that these are lives. These are people's lives that are being lost every single day. These are people's bloods that are being shed every single day. And the president, as the commander-in-chief of the Congolese armed forces, should address the nation and ask for an apology on behalf of the army if he was a real commander-in-chief. And if he doesn't do that, we treat him as an accomplice of all this carnage that happened, and he will be held accountable, and we will deal with him these upcoming elections. He has to actually go. Just like the MONUSCO, they have to leave the country. The MONUSCO has been ineffective. It's a useless force that is spending a lot of money, and then they are now involved in several other businesses across Eastern DRC instead of securing the civilians. And when the civilians decide to talk about that, the army intended to protect them goes and starts shooting on the civilians who are demanding for their human rights, their security of being. If there is no security, there's no need to have a social contract within a society. There's no need to have a social contract.
I mean, it's the fundamental basis of every government.
Exactly. It's the fundamental basis of every government. We pay them our taxes so that they could secure us. We pay them our taxes so that they could pay soldiers. But unfortunately, even soldiers are not being paid, and yet they are sending these same soldiers to come and kill civilians. While some oligarchs in Kinshasa are enriching themselves, totally disconnected from the reality, and keep on abusing with power. So these politicians should stop. They should stop abusing with people's lives, because we are actually tired. That region has been unstable and people are tired. They are tired. People are still expressing themselves freely, but we will reach a point where the revolution will only be the way forward, because people are tired. We have the M23 that are killing us. We have more than 100 rebel groups that are terrorizing people every single day. And now the army that is supposed to protect the people, now it starts shooting again on the people. The
and
politicians
behaving like rebels. Yeah. Thank you.
Even the rebels.
Thank you, Gedeon.
The politicians supposing to be the politicians that are supposed to be accountable. They are not accountable to the Congolese people. So the population is caught under a political game. Is caught under a total scheme of incompetent leaders, and this is unacceptable. It's unacceptable, and the responsibility should be drawn. The governor of Goma should be ruthlessly sanctioned because he committed crime against humanity.
Thank you, Gedeon. Now, Nixon, before we go on a break, the United Nations Secretary General Antonio Guterres mentioned that MONUSCO is in its final phase. Could you help us understand the criteria or milestones that will determine when and how the mission concludes? And do you think when MONUSCO leaves, there will be a huge security vacuum in the Congo? Will the Congolese people be missing the presence of MONUSCO, who's been there for 29 years?
Well, I think those are semantics in the words of the UN Secretary General. Instead of saying that we have failed, we are leaving. And I think that's the point that needs to be made clear. Whether there will be a security vacuum in the DRC when MONUSCO leaves, the presence of MONUSCO and the absence of it shows clearly that it's more or less the same, because it has not made any impact on the security protection of the Congolese citizen. So one need to think that the Congolese government should have the responsibility, and I have mentioned this before on this very program, for the need for security sector reform in the country, to really build a Republican army that is professionalized to protect the interests of the nation, to protect the boundaries of the nations, and to secure everyone with their belonging and protect the territorial integrity of the country. Without that, I'm afraid that it might be another case of lawlessness, but it won't be even worse even if MONUSCO leaves. What I understand is that there will be other alternative ways in which the country search for solutions. One of the problems that have happened in DRC is to think that the solution will come from outside. I mean, in my view, Congolese themselves need to sit down and think about their future.
They're smart enough to think up a solution for themselves. Apologies. Next, at a fine place to go on a break. When we return, we'll continue our conversation on the situation in the eastern DRC, where over 50 protesters were killed, calling for the exit of the United Nations peacekeeping mission in the Congo. MONUSCO will bring you more on this when we return. Please stay with us. thank you for staying with us. If you're just joining, this is Secure the Continent. We've been discussing the clampdown on anti-United Nations protests in the Democratic Republic of Congo that left dozens dead. Why the Congolese want MONUSCO out and the security challenges we still have on the program. Nixon Katembo, an analyst for the Great Lakes in East Africa, who joins us live from Johannesburg in South Africa. We also have Gedeon, Baleke, activist and political analyst, joining us live from Toronto in Canada. Now, Gedeon, beyond popular discontent, what specific challenges do you think MONUSCO faces in fulfilling its mandate in a region marked by persistent militia violence? Do you think it's in its mandate, its use of force? Are there structural issues that hinder the effectiveness? Because if you do a random poll on the 29 years of MONUSCO's presence in the DRC, quite a number of citizens will score it pretty low. They would say, you know, it hasn't done much in improving the security situation. What's your take on this, Gedeon?
The MONUSCO mission has been totally ineffective. It has been totally ineffective due to a lot of bureaucracy. So it has a lot of bureaucracy that creates jobs for expatriates, for foreigners, instead of investing that money in the Congolese population, instead of investing that money in the security of the Congolese people. Of course, I'm not trying to overlook at the job they've conducted in the DRC. The MONUSCO has been present. Some of them have done good job in certain areas, but the overall mission has been a failure because it's a peacekeeping mission, but a mission that has failed to keep peace in the DRC. So there's no purpose of having a peacekeeping mission that is not providing peace after 29 years. You know, we cannot continue applying the same measure, applying the same thing, and expect having different results if we are if we can't elaborate and evaluate the mission itself. That's why it's important for the MONUSCO to leave the country right now. It's important for them to withdraw, and Congolese should seek other alternatives that would secure themselves. We have to secure our country by our own. We have to reform our army. We have to stop putting rebels and criminals into the army. We have to build a country that respects human beings, that respects the citizens that are the backbone of the sovereignty of the country. So we have to respect the Congolese people. We need a professional army that will uphold the rule of law. We need to have a state that doesn't promote impunity, a state that punish people who commit crimes, a state that punish people who are involved in all kinds of and types of bad things in the society.
Thank you very much, Gedeon. Now, Sue, following doing this post-mortem and prognosis on MONUSCO's presence, its 29-year presence in the Democratic Republic of Congo, Nixon, in addressing militia violence, could you provide examples of both the successes and limitations of MONUSCO's support to the Democratic Republic of Congo's government and local communities? What obstacles do they encounter? Gedeon did touch on a few of these obstacles.
I think one of the most important thing that we should point out is within the context of the MONUSCO mandate, whether this was supposed to have a mandate of using the force. And even when it is given a mandate of using the force, it does not act because of the bureaucracy that my interlocutor have quite frankly mentioned very well. So one take an example of the M23 defeat in 2013. This was largely because of the Force Intervention Brigade led by South Africa and Malawi, as well as Tanzania, intervening alongside some very good patriotic Congolese soldiers led by the late Colonel Mamadou Ntala. That was a measure of success in terms of MONUSCO operations as providing support for the Congolese National Army. But we have seen that after that, there were discussions, and some MONUSCO soldiers were saying, "But no rebels, no job." These are words of some Pakistani commanders asked on the streets of Goma why they are not eliminating some of the armed groups.
Sorry to interrupt you, Nixon. So potentially, the people in whose interest a state of permanent conflict works for them, so that they can get the wages the United Nations pays them, which is higher than most national armies. So they basically need a state of constant conflict.
Basically, MONUSCO, as I've said before on this very program, is part of the problem of the Congolese security. Because their presence there means a certain budgetary gain on contributing troops, countries. And therefore, perpetuating insecurity justifies the raison d'etre. In other words, the reason why they should remain in the country forever. And you would have seen, if you monitor over the years, that come September, October, November, violence starts flaring up in eastern DRC and killings across. Why? Because by December, every December, the UN Security Council need to renew the mandate of the mission. And this has been my observation for a person who have been watching the conflict in the Great Lakes region for quite some time. And that tells you that MONUSCO is part of the problem. There has been instances where MONUSCO is distributing arms to some of the armed groups to terrorize the civilian and continue, and therefore go back and say, no, they are militias that have been created. If you recall that by the time MONUSCO was sent in 1999, there were more or less than 4 armed groups in eastern DRC. But by their presence, there have been a multiplication of those armed groups. And the DRC does not manufacture any single gun, neither does it have any single factory of ammunition. Where do these ammunitions come from? Where do these guns come from? From the very same people in the Great Lakes region, in neighboring countries, there in Uganda, in Rwanda, and in the MONUSCO itself. Some of the troops have been said to be distributing arms to even armed groups that are terrorizing civilians. So, in a nutshell, what I'm trying to say is that MONUSCO is part of the problem, and one need to look at the history of the United Nations intervention. Go back to the history of Indonesia with East Timor, where they spent a number of years, but at the end of the day, when the then president, the dictator Suharto, was leaving, East Timor was in turmoil, the civilians had been killed, and eventually they ran a referendum to secede from Indonesia. It begs the question, is it a strategy to frustrate the Congolese people, particularly those who are living in the East, so that a referendum can be run to have the Eastern Congo secede from the rest of the Congo? And this has been the discussion in Washington. And
quite interesting observations, Nixon. If the end result of this could be a possible balkanization of the Congo, which a lot of Congolese not looking forward to. I'd like to bring Gedeon back into the conversation. Gedeon, Nixon did mention some quite damning and serious reactions to the MONUSCO operations in Congo so far, and I'm sure a lot of Congolese people echo the same sentiments, that they haven't made the situation better, if not they've made it worse. Now, Gedeon, thinking regionally, there's a saying in Africa that if your neighbor's house is on fire, you're not going to go to sleep. Now, thinking regionally, what are the potential spillover effects of the ongoing conflict in the eastern DR Congo and neighboring countries? And how can these regional dynamics be managed to promote stability? You have a neighbor in Rwanda that the allegations by United Nations experts that, they're meddling and causing instability in the Congo. So what's your take on all of this?
Tons of evidence are there when it comes to Rwanda. Rwanda is a tyrant state led by a tyrant Paul Kagame, who conduct illegally military operation in the DRC by violating our sovereignty. He has been doing that in front of everyone, even with the support of the international community, because they've never had the courage to sanction him. They have evidence. We have UN reports. We have the mapping reports that investigate all the crimes and crimes against humanity committed in the DRC. And we have documents, we have human rights reports, but still, despite all these UN reports, we don't see action on the ground. And people still die every single day. People continue to suffer every single day. And that should actually lead Congolese to think. We have to think, because it looks like we are standing on our feet by ourselves. We have to think and know and stop a little bit and know where are we aiming to head to lead our country, because everyone is somehow against us now. And even the government that is supposed actually to protect the civilians, the government that is supposed to guarantee the right of the Congolese, to protect the right of the Congolese, is playing the game of the enemy. So the people are left on themselves. They are left on their own, and this is actually it's actually bad for the Congolese people. It's actually bad for us, and we have to look forward and find a way that will take us out of all this situation. I don't support the Balkanization of the country, because I believe in one Congo. The Congo is not a divisive or divided country. We have a divisive politics system. We have a divisive, incompetent political structures that do not allow the country to move forward, that is not able to meet the needs of the Congolese people, and we should actually deal with that. The problem is not, the solution is not about dividing the country. The solution is about putting proper leadership that will put the Congolese interest at the core of every state-led project, that will assure that the Congolese are being the sole beneficiary of the minerals in their country, that will secure the people's rights and secure their properties. That's what we need. We have Rwanda is an enemy country because they invaded the DRC. They created most of the conflict in the eastern DRC, originated from Rwanda since the genocide in 1994. We have Uganda as well. They are meddling in the DRC affair. They've created the cartel where they loot natural resources. They plunder our minerals that sustain their economic growth. The same thing with Rwanda. Now the Kenyan forces are now in the DRC, and I fear that might result into the same thing. But unfortunately, we have statesmen, we have leaders who don't listen, leaders who don't have any single notion of geostrategic interest. They don't have any single notion of geopolitics. And that's why we keep on repeating the same mistakes, and we are paying the prices because people are dying and Congolese are still suffering. And we have a lot of Congolese now going into exile, becoming refugees in the eastern DRC. You go even across sub-Saharan Africa, you come across millions of Congolese who are hopeless. They are now living as refugees, running away from their country because the state has failed to protect their rights. The state has failed to defend them. The state has failed to secure them. The state has failed to provide to them. And we need to reorganize our society.
A very sad and unfortunate situation indeed. Gedeon, now, Nixon, as we wrap up on today's conversation, looking forward, can you outline a comprehensive roadmap for ensuring lasting peace, stability and development in the eastern DRC? Is it possible, and what are the critical steps that needs to be taken?
I think lasting peace in the DRC is possible if first there is a political will on the part of the international community. And here namely the 5 permanent members of Security Council, because these are major players on what is happening in terms of geopolitics and geostrategic issues that my colleague have just mentioned in supporting invading countries such as Rwanda and Uganda in Eastern DRC. The second aspect is redefining the political culture of the country itself, redefining a geostrategic importance of the country, but also drawing up a roadmap for peace and development of the country through a responsible and responsive leadership that seeks to advance the interests first of the country, of the citizen, and making sure that whatever happen, it happen on the basis of the nation building and social cohesion
it should be in the best interest of the Congolese people, because they're the most important people in this equation. And like I said, big thank you to Nixon, Katembo, Analyst, Great Lakes and East Africa, who joined us now from Johannesburg, South Africa, and also Gedeon, Baleke, activist and political analyst, joining us live from Toronto in Canada. It was a pleasure speaking with you on this very important topic. We do appreciate your time and insights on the conversation. Thank you.